Hi, everybody. Welcome to Lunch with Linda. I'm Linda Daniels, and you are now inside Northampton Wools. And here we are, March 3rd, 2025. We made it through February, which was a bit rough, but looks like March is going to bring us right into spring. Later on this week, we're expecting temperatures even in the 50s, which will feel like summer. And man, when we look out the window across the street, a lot of the big snow piles are fast disappearing. There's still some rough parking in Northampton, but for the most part, you can at least now park and get to the meters. We had a really busy week this week, and there are a number of stories that I'd like to share with you. And I want to talk about ripping out, or frogging, or tinking, whatever you care to call it. And I'm going to show you an example of when and why it has to happen. But first of all, we got 2 new books from Laine magazine. The Trails and Valleys book is a smaller, like size-wise smaller, book written by Lindsay Fowler, and it's a nice little collection of hats. There's a couple of hats, a headband, socks, and a couple of sweaters in here, based around the theme of being out in nature and camping. The pictures, as usual, are beautiful. There's one of the sock patterns. I think there are 3 sock patterns in here. But it's a nice little fun accessory book to add to your collection. And most of the patterns, there's one big shawl, this Cabin Games hat. Ooh. And what's interesting about this little hat pattern is it's not only fun to wear, but it's fun to play checkers on.
What?
Isn't that cute?
No way.
Yes.
That's cool.
So she also gives you directions for making the checkers as well.
What?
Most of the patterns are in worsted weight yarn, so they won't take long to do. So we have that now in stock. It's also on the website, ready for you to purchase. And then there's also the summer issue of the Laine magazine, which has my favorite color for the cover. And there are some beauties in here too, especially the one on the cover. I think that one is a really beautiful lace sweater. Or cardigan,
nice,
if you will. Like, and there are some fairly simple designs in here, but always with that touch of flair or interest. And this is one thing that I've always wanted to do, and maybe this summer we'll get it together enough to do. Every issue of the Laine magazine has some sort of recipe in it, and from soup to sandwiches to desserts like this, and I've always wanted to have a little day where we do all the recipes from Laine magazine. Look at this ravioli.
That would be fun.
I mean, I've never made ravioli in my entire life, but they look delicious. I think that's the mailman coming too.
Okay, I'll see it.
So maybe this year we can get a day of, if you've got a Laine magazine, make the recipe from it and bring it and see. Then there's this really sweet little short sleeve sweater, little cardigan. I love this. Oh. So simple. They've shown it in let me tell you what it is. And of course, so they did 2 yarns, a lace weight or a fingering weight with a mohair to give it that soft little look, but this would also work in almost any of the new cottons that we've got in as well. Fast to knit so that it's not fall when you finally have your finished short sleeve sweater ready to do. Let's see, blah, 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 needles. Yeah, size 6 needles, so that's not too bad for summer knitting. All right.
I'm starting all mine now.
You have to start knitting now. Otherwise, you will be wearing it in the fall.
Yeah.
So those 2 are our 2 new books.
Wait.
And then we just got yarn in.
Sorry about that.
We just opened the boxes, and it is I wanted to show you that because it's 2 new yarns that I've been waiting for. I talked a little bit about them when I first ordered them because I was so very excited. The first one that we got is from Laine du Nord. This comes to us from Euro Yarns. It's called a luxury silk from their luxury line. It's 100% silk, and it is a tape. So Kate, maybe you can hold that up close so people can see.
It matches my nails.
It feels so soft. It's softer than a cotton feel, and it is 100% silk. Now it's a silk it's not a mulberry silk. Mulberry silk is when they only let the caterpillars eat mulberry leaves, and that's what gives you the mercerization, then gives you a really shiny look. This is what's called a dry silk, and if you look closely at it when you knit it, you can see the little like nodules. They're a little tiny, I don't know whether to call them flecks. It's not different color, but it's a slight texture to it that doesn't show up in the knitting. Now
the pictures of the colors from the company website are very zoomed in, and you can see how the tape has been made. And it's a little like not thick and thin, but just a lot of texture.
Yeah, and when you look at the strand, you don't see it go thick and thin.
No.
But because it is a really flat tape, it's made like a chain and then flattened.
That's the word, chain.
I couldn't resist knitting a little sample because we were having a discussion about what needle size it should be knit on. The label says that it should be at a gauge of 23 stitches to 4 inches, which is really tight. And I just didn't believe it, and I don't believe it even now. I've knit it on a size 8 needle at a gauge of about 4.5, probably 4.5 stitches to 1 inch, and that lets the tape look like tape. Again, you have to look close up, but it lets the texture of the yarn show. I did a little bit of stocking net stitch. I threw in a couple of lace because the description on the website talked about great for lace patterns. And then I did a little bit of rib. I'm falling in love with these really wide ribs, so I did knit 4, purl 2. And I think a whole tank top done like that, knit 4, purl 2, would look really, really nice.
Yeah.
It is silk, so it does, even though this is very soft and springy, in that rib pattern, it's not going to suck way in. So it's not going to do well for a kind of top that you want to really hug your body. You can see it even in the stocking net stitch. Most of the time when you do stocking net stitch, yarns really curl in. And you can see how this isn't really curling that much. It's really kind of flat, and that's a reflection of the tape. So it's not going to have a lot of springiness to it. I'm not sure that's the right word because it feels really good, but it's not going to have a lot of like contraction to it. It's going to stay the way you knit it. So I've just been knitting in the last 15 minutes to do a little bit of sample of this, and I love it.
I wonder how it would look with some slip stitches.
When you look at this side, you can see the purl stitch. The stitch integrity will really be intense in this. So you stitch pattern that combines knits and purls or cables, it's going to have a lot of definition to it as well.
The light kind of refracts differently on a tape than it does around.
It does. It really does. So unfortunately, we only got half the order. So we have these 3 colors that came in, and we have more colors on back order, and hopefully they will come soon. But it's got pretty decent yardage. So for a tank, you would be able to, it's got 148 yards. So for a tank top, for the average person, you're probably only going to need 4, maybe 5, depending on how long you made it. But we're going to knit something with that right away. Love it. 100% silk, and you should hand wash it. It does say on the label that you could machine wash it up to 40 degrees centigrade, but it's a hand knit, and you really don't want to take away any of the life, if you know what I mean, in that fabric. So hand wash that. The other yarn that we got in, I also did a little sample of, and this I was really excited about and then forgot about, and now I'm really excited again now that I see it in my hand. This is a Louisa Harding yarn called Gabrielle.
Gabrielle.
And
Anybody
it
else
is a
know
cotton
Gabrielle?
and poly and metal combination. And I did this on the size 8 needle too, just because that's the needles that I had and I wasn't going to get up. But this is a little bit looser than I wanted it to be, and it's stocking net stitch. I'm going to knit a Sophie, a big kind of Sophie kind of shawl out of this, because I think it's perfect for summer. But wait a minute, because Kate and I were just talking, and I think what I'm really going to do is make that mohair poncho that we've had in the store for a while, where you basically just knit a rectangle and then sew up one side and pop it over your head. It will be delicious in this particular yarn. I hope you can see the sparkle in that. And if you watched the Oscars last night, you know that sparkle is everywhere. Sparkle and glitter and glow.
You can't really
all
see it.
over the place. Well, this white has a gold sparkle in it with those little black nubs, and then we also got in the black. And that's what I know what it is. It's both gold and silver.
It's duo.
Yes, it's a duo, so it really shines. When you see this in person, you'll see just how much that really sparkles all over the place. Oh, that's beautiful. Ugh. Really beautiful. So we'll have both of those.
You could jazz up like a t-shirt dress with that poncho.
Exactly.
And automatically just,
Yeah, those little slip dresses where you need something to cover you. It's going to be perfect. I'm going to do that as soon as I stop sleeping again. Both of those are $25 a skein. The Gabrielle has 371 yards. It's only going to take 2 skeins to do that poncho. And as soon as it's done, I'll have it here to show you. Okay, so we had a delightful couple come in last Monday that I wanted to tell you about. Her name is Caroline, and she came in. And her husband parked the car, and then he came in. And as he walked through the door, she says, "Oh, and there is my Precious. Precious, did you have to park far away?" Aww. She told me that they've been married for 63 years. They've been together, and that she knit him a sweater when they were first married, and he was still just finishing college. And she had the sweater with her because now her grandson wants a sweater just like Poppy's, and she's going to try to knit it for him. And of course, she said she didn't have the pattern anymore. But because she had the sweater, I was able to borrow the sweater for a week and write a pattern for her. And while she was here, she called her grandson to find out what color he wanted it to be. The original sweater was done in what she called, now I'm going to get them mixed up, but I think it was a Princeton blue and white, and her grandson wants it in a Harvard maroon and white. Well, they were really, really delightful, and she was just thrilled to be able to recreate this, hopefully, for her grandson. And it just, again, brought home to me how important knitting can be generationally. That this grandson I don't even know that he's seen his grandfather wear this sweater, except for maybe in pictures, because time does do a number to most of us, and I'm sure he was not an exception, but loved the idea of his grandmother making a sweater for him. So hopefully today they come again and we'll pick up the pattern, and she'll be able to choose yarn and start knitting on that sweater for him. We had a lot of grandchildren stories this week. I had another woman in who was looking to get something repaired and said that she didn't knit herself, but that her mother was a great knitter and had knit baby sweaters for all of her children as they were born and growing up. And she said now the original knitter's grandchildren are babies and wearing the sweaters that Grandma knit for her children.
Whoa.
So it's been a hand-me-down kind of process, and they're really, really enjoying and loving all of them. And don't those make great photographs to see Dad in his sweater and Junior in the same sweater years later? Man, if you're lucky enough to have that happen, I would love to see them.
I think I remember that in my childhood home. I remember seeing my cousin wearing something that my aunt
I can
wore.
almost picture it too. Yeah, exactly.
And I would see it all the time, both of them wearing it in different decades.
And especially I think around baptism or christening, that those kind of garments really got passed down, or blankets and things like that.
Yeah.
So value your knitting. And then the other grandchild story is just really great. So one of our customers has a granddaughter and a grandson, and she knit her granddaughter a little sweater with a lot of guidance, let's say, from her granddaughter, and it came out perfectly. And her 13-year-old grandson kind of watched this process and saw his younger sister in this really cute little sweater and said to his grandmother, "I'm 13. I don't really wear sweaters. They wear sweatshirts." And he said, "But can we take a look at my blanket?" And brought out the blanket that Kit and her daughter had started when he was born. And both of them knit panels of different colored squares and sewed the panels together. And that was his baby blanket. And then when he was 7, Kit took the blanket back and she added more rows of squares on each side to make the blanket a little bit bigger. And then when he was 10, he brought the blanket to Grandma and said, "It's getting too small. Can you add on?" And she added on an edge all around the outside of it so that it was a little bit bigger. And now at 13, he means for it to be even bigger. So by the time she's done with this will be a blanket that he can take off to college with him and use on his twin size or double size bed, whatever he ends up with. And even though this is a blanket that's been loved and used, it's really holding up pretty well. She did use a high density cotton blend in it, and there were a few places that needed repair. The seam has come undone, or there was a stitch caught, and we managed to fix that for her. And now she's going to add on all around it. And it was also, it's just so great to see the grandchild put value on what Grandma had made for him.
And to not ask for a new blanket.
And to not ask for a whole new blanket, to be able to go from there, because it was really special to him. So I'd love it if you guys have stories like that. I'd love for you to share them with us next time you come in. We would love, love, love to hear that kind of stuff.
The blanket that grows with you.
That's the name of a good pattern. I think we'll have to do that. Okay, one other quick note. Here we are in March, so the countdown has begun to Local Yarn Store Day. That's going to be on April 26th. It's always and forever will be on the last Saturday of April. We are beginning to collect special things for that day, and Local Yarn Store Day was started by the National Needlework Association as a way for the consumers to show support for their local yarn stores. And that's us. And I just got to throw this out there. With what's happening with Joann's, 2 things. You want to be able to still have a place to buy yarn. We don't want that to happen to us or to any other local yarn store. And so we want to appreciate your showing us support. People are really crying and upset about Joann's, as they should be, because it's going to leave a big hole in the whole crafting community that's going to have to be taken up elsewhere. And we hope that some of you will look to us to help with that need. But Local Yarn Store Day will be a day full of kind of like party atmosphere. The National Needlework Association produces little Local Yarn Store Day pins, which we have purchased and give out for the last couple of years that they've done it. And I already have my order in for those, so there will be a pin for you to collect. We get a limited amount of those, so it's usually the first 50 people that purchase something in the store will be able to get one of those. And then very delightfully, was it Friday? It was Friday.
So,
Kate and I were sitting here, and in came a person who said that they wanted to help. I think they had just found out about Local Yarn Store Day, and said that they were a designer who lives locally. Their Ravelry name is Studio 249, and their name is Charles Sawyer, and they have done a few small project things, hats. I think there was a cowl. Not a lot of things, but they're going to give us a code so that when you purchase yarn, you can get one of their patterns free on Ravelry or at a discount. We're working the details out now. But that's just one of the things that's going to happen. And to have that happen here in the store with a local designer, someone that I had truthfully never heard of before. I don't know whether they've just started to do this or relatively new. I think with the number of patterns that are on the Ravelry page, they're just starting out. And so it's a way basically for the two of us to support each other. And we're going to have a number of things like that. If you're new to Local Yarn Store Day, Casa Pinka always does a code. What are you looking at?
10% of Charles Sawyer's Ravelry pattern sales go to the Dakin Humane Society.
That's wonderful. Even more local. So Charles is really reaching or really concentrating on being very, very local and local supporting. So we'll definitely have to do up some of the models that have been created so that you can see them close up. It does have a cowl. There is a cowl as well.
Matching cowls and hats.
Great. So like I said, Casa Pinka usually does a code, and a lot of our suppliers will be doing special Local Yarn Store Day things as well. So if you have your calendar out, make a big fat circle around April 26th. Again, you'll be hearing me talking about more and more things as we get closer to that day. All right. I want to end today with talking about ripping out with another little story, two of them actually. All of us have had to do it. You can't knit without having to do some kind of ripping out. Sometimes it's extreme, sometimes it's just a few stitches. And when you're just doing a few stitches, there's that cute little tink name, which is knit backwards. You either take them out stitch by stitch or you shove everything off the needle and just rip. I had a customer in the other day who was stuck on a figureless mitt pattern and it wasn't making any sense. She had bound off stitches for the thumb and was finishing off the hand, and she just couldn't get it right. And when we took a really close look at what she had done up to that point, realized that she had misread the increasing for the thumb gusset directions and bound off for the thumb over here in the palm, not over where the increasing should have been, and was already up here. And she could hear it coming because she said, I don't want to rip it out. Who does? Nobody wants to rip it out. Yeah. I've talked about this before. You can be looking at what you know took you hours to do, and you're faced with having to basically throw that time away. My answer is usually, if you think you can live with it, okay, don't rip it out. What I told her was, put this mitt on a holder, just don't finish it. Go back and make the second one. Now that you understand exactly what the pattern is telling you to do, you will make the second one correctly. Usually, what will happen is you'll go, okay, that's the way it should be, that's worth doing this other problem over again. And it's not that much knitting.
And you also have a comparison.
Exactly. You can look at the two and see what it should be and what it isn't.
And that's not a waste of time. That's learning.
Exactly, learning. Well, there was another customer in the store while this woman and I were having a discussion, and she piped up with, out of the blue, with, "You're not a knitter if you don't know how to rip out."
Oh.
Which was a little bit like, ugh, okay. But what was even funnier was that in a matter of minutes, the two of them started to talk and realized that their children were in school together, had graduated together, were actually both in the music field, and that they knew each other. And so they began to have a wonderful catch-up conversation. So even ripping out can bring friends together. Now my sad story that I'm going to end with.
Oh.
I've talked about this sweater before, and now I have, I'm brave enough to show you. This is the first half of the Hani Falkenberg sweater. Her designs were very graphic and very geometric. So this is a kind of mitered take. The piece is knit all in one piece from the beginning like this. You cast on all of these stitches and gradually decrease
It's so magic.
to the sleeve.
Ugh.
And then you bind off stitches and then you're just knitting the sleeve. Beautiful, right? I am ready to love this sweater. And when I pulled it out of the, put away bin, I saw that I had finished completely one half and the other half of the sweater was started. So I said, I can do this. I can finish this off.
Yeah.
So I started to knit. And I finished the body, which is this part right here, and started the sleeves. And I'm this far into the sleeve and I'm like, God, this sleeve is taking forever. Why is this feeling so big? Well, my knitting has drastically changed in the 25 years that I have put this thing on hold. Look at the difference. This,
Yeah, line them up because
yes,
it is really
dramatic.
It's good to see. Yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Oh my gosh, look at that. Inches.
Are you kidding? That's like feet, not
That's
inches.
a whole foot.
Oh my gosh. So, 30 years ago, I was obviously a much tighter knitter. And now I'm like, oh, this shoulder hurts. Blah, blah, blah. And I've loosened up dramatically.
Yeah.
So now I am faced with a decision. Because basically on this piece, I was only about here. So from here over is my today knitting. And it's dramatic. There's no way I can make these two pieces work together. So I have spent weeks thinking, okay, do I rip this out and make it all this? Or do I rip this out and make it all go down to like a size 2 needle and consciously make an effort? The other thing is that it is a Shetland wool. And Shetland wool has it demands a strong hand to get Shetland to knit the way, on tiny needles the way it really should be knit. It needs a firm hand. There's no relaxed, half asleep knitting when you're knitting Shetland. So what do you think?
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to rip this side out because this is just ridiculous.
That's not a sleeve.
I mean, it's a bat wing,
Yeah.
practically.
A dolman sleeve.
So I'm looking at ripping out the entire thing. Well, yeah, that's a lot of time. I'm far enough away from the time that I spent to do this that that's not really an issue for me anymore. But it becomes a question of, can I duplicate that tightness of knitting? And this will be my summer project. There's no other way about it. It will definitely be my summer.
See what happens on the size 2 and see if it hurts too
I will
much.
try. Exactly. If it hurts too much, I just won't do it. Any tight knitters out there that are generous enough to finish it for me, might need to own it after they're done, because Kate, this is your color. Are you
It's
kidding?
my colors, but I would have to wear something underneath it.
It is at least garter stitch. Oh, it's very itchy. Yeah,
and
very, very itchy.
I'm sensitive to like seams even, so I'm very specific.
And
with
it has
what
a
I
big
wear.
seam right down the back.
Yeah.
So that's my ripping out story. I will do it too.
Eileen says, "You finish the big one and give the smaller one to me."
If I wish I had enough yarn to make it
Yeah.
again, to do it over, but I don't. This was a kit.
Eileen said she made it. She must have made it way back with
Oh,
you.
you did, Eileen?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll have to see it the next time I'm down there, which will be Friday. All right, you guys. So that's everything. One other little tip that I have in my notes is that when you do have to rip out and you're left with live stitches that you need to go back onto a needle, and I say this all the time in all of my classes, you should be putting those stitches back on a tiny needle. If you have a size 1 or 2, like 40-inch, just because that gives you lots of room, needle, that should go in your toolkit so that when you rip out, you can use that tiny needle to get the stitches back on. Then it doesn't stress the stitches and you'll be able to knit. There's nothing worse, especially if you're a tight knitter, than trying to get small stitches back on a bigger needle. You're going to lose them left and right. So put that tiny needle in your kit and you will, especially if you have one of our little likey mini kits. It will be perfect for that. All right, enjoy the week. It's going to be beautiful out there. We've got lots of new cottons and linens, and like you can see, stuff still coming in. So get those needles clicking and go knit something.
Bye.
Bye.